Ezras Hashem. Today's daf is Masechta Baba Metzia daf Chovov. So we're going to start from Chafei Amud Beis. We're going to make it big over here by the Mishnah. So the Mishnah begins. Pretty straightforward. Some of this you might remember from your yeshiva years. Matzah, if a man found begal in a pile of, let's say, debris. Okay, found a becher in a pile of debris, uva koisel yoshan, or an old wall that did not fall down. Okay, but you stuck your hand into an old wall. Hare, you're allowed to keep it. Whatever you find is yours. The Gemara is going to explain. Now, a koisel chadash. Now, a koisel yoshan, by the way, is an old wall that you believe was around from the time of the Amoraim, the Canaanim, that time. So the Bronze Age. Matzah b'kaisel chadash, but if you find it in a new wall, that means after the Jews took over Israel, in the times of Yeshua, and they started building new homes. So if you find an item in a new wall, so that depends. And you're in the Rishus Harabim. So imagine, how do you find an item in a wall? You're walking in the Rishus Harabim, and the house is flush with the Rishus Harabim, and you stick your hand in the wall, and the hole in the wall, so you can keep it. It depends. Metzia, it's from the half of the wall towards the outside, towards the Rishus Harabim. Shaloi, you're allowed to keep it. Why? Because I assume that another person in the Rishus Harabim actually put his stuff in that wall temporarily and left it there. And he was miyayish because he figured that so many people are passing the Rishus Harabim, and I'll never get it back. But but if it's from the half the wall towards the inside of the house, so then shel balabais, it belongs to the owner of that house that's right next to the Rishus Harabim, because he probably put it into a hole from his inside of the house into the wall. Now, let's say Gemara is talking about you have a house that you Airbnb, and you find something after some of the renters left. If you rented your house to other people, so then afilu b'soich habayis, even if you find it in the house, right? So, and you don't know which person lost the item. You rent the house to a lot of different people. So then, Harei Elu Shaloi, the owner of the house, is allowed to keep it. And we're going to discuss all these in the Gemara. Tana, we learned in a Brisa regarding a wall that fell down, right? A debris, a rubble, a pile of rubble, or an old wall. If you find anything in a pile of rubble or an old wall, Harei Elu Shaloi. Why? Let's say the guy whose old wall it is, let's say a person has a house with a very, very old wall, right? He bought a house that was there from the Bronze Age. If you stick your hand into the wall, you're allowed to, no matter where you find it in that wall, in a hole in that wall, you're allowed to keep it. The question is why? Why don't we say that it belongs to the owner of the house? Why are you allowed to keep anytime you stick your hand into a very, very old wall? Answers the Gemara, the finder can say to the owner of the pile or to the owner of the wall, right? He can say, Shel Amorayim Hain. These belongs to the Amorites, the ones that lived, the Goyim, that lived in Israel before the Jews came. And therefore, I found, let's say, an artifact, right, that belonged to them, not to you. And therefore, it doesn't belong to you at all. And you don't say you're kind of just because it's in your wall. That's a good question. But the answer is, since you did not know it existed, right? You did not know it existed, therefore you don't acquire it. So basically, the guy who found it, he can keep it. Says the Gemara, how do you know it was really from the Amoraim? Maybe it was a Jewish guy who happened to have owned the house after the Jews took over Israel. And it was a Jewish guy who left the item there. Alta Amoraim ni matzni Yisrael loy matznei is only if it's from the inside of the house, you can assume that it was from the Amoraim. Maybe it's the Jewish owner Maybe he inherited the house from his father and grandfather or whatever, and they were the one that hid the item there. So how do you know for sure this item that you found, this artifact, belonged to ancient people? And says the Gemara, this was necessary. We go to Chavav Ma'alef, the Shichvei. So Rashi explains that we can see that it was a lot of rust on the item that you found. You found a goblet that has so much rust that it's indicated that it's there for a very, very, very long time, and therefore it must have been something that the Jew was never belonged to a Jew. It belonged to the Amorayan, and he just found an ancient item. So the finder is allowed to keep it no matter where he finds it in the wall. Then the Gemara Mishnah says, if it's a new wall, it's a Jewish house, right? And it's a Jewish wall and a brand new wall. So then, and you're walking the Rishus Harabim, Mechetzi Lechutz, whatever you find from half the wall towards the Rishus Harabim, Shalah, you're allowed to keep it because it probably was put there by somebody who was walking in the Rishus Harabim. Mechetzi Lefim Shal Balabayis. But if you stick your hand too so into the wall, and you mamish almost close from halfway of the wall towards the inside of the house, then shel balabayis, the item that you find there belongs to the owner of the house. Amar Rav Ashi qualified this, and he said the following: Sakinoi. Let's say you find a knife in the hole in this hole. So then bosa kata. No matter how big the knife is, right? Even if it goes straight through and through the hole. So then it depends where the handle is. If the handle is facing the inside of the house, then it's presumably that the person on the inside of the house put the knife there. If the handle is facing on the outside of the house, then we can assume that somebody in Rishus Harabim put it there. So it doesn't matter where from the halfway mark, you determine where the handle is. Or let's say v'chisa. Let's say you have a pouch, right, or pocketbook. Basa shnotze, you look where the straps are to close the pocketbook. It depends. If it's facing if the straps are facing the inside of the house, then somebody from the inside of the house put it there. If it's facing on the outside of the house towards the Rishus Harabim, then you know that somebody from the Rishus Harabim put it there. Says the Gemara, Be'ela, if that's the case, Masnisin, our Mishnah gives you a demarcation where you find the item. The Tani, the item is Metzia Lechutz Shalai. If you find it from halfway mark, half the wall towards the outside, towards the Rishus Harabim, then you can keep it. Metzia Lefnim Shal Balabayis. And if it's from the halfway mark towards the inside of the house, it belongs to the owner of the house. Let's see. It's not so. Ikata Legav. Let's see if the handle is on the inside. Ikata Lebar is the handle on the outside. Ishnotze Legav, if the straps of the purse is on the inside, Ishnotze Levar, or it's on the outside. Because you just tell me that if I can have an indication of who put it there, then I have to go by that indication. So what is the case of our Mishnah discussing? And says the Gemara, Masnisim Udra v'Nascha. Mishnah is talking about something like this. An Udra is a piece of wool, right? It's a piece of wool that covers the whole thing, like a piece of wool which does not have a handle, or a bar of silver. So then it depends. Whatever towards the outside of the wall, towards the Rishus Harabim, belongs to the finder. Whatever is towards the inside belongs to the owner of the house. Tana, we learned in a brisa. If you have a wall that was full of the item, let's say the whole bar of silver covered the whole inside of the wall, right? And the guy found it there. Cholkin, you divide it between the owner of the house and the one that found it there. So the Gemara says Pshita, of course, because it's covering the whole inside, and you don't know who put it there. Did the owner of the house put it there, or somebody from the Rishus Harabim put it there? So what is the brisa? What is the brisa novelty of the brisa? And it says the Gemara, the brisa is teaching you a case, the mishapa b'chad gisa, that it's slanted towards one edge. So mahu the same ishtapuche ishtapach, it fell there. It's kamash malan. So if you see the picture over here, let's say the item somehow is split. It's on a slant, and it's right now halfway on the inside, but the upper part is on the outside of the wall. So I would think really the guy from the outside, the person in the Rishus Harabim should get it, because really it was originally halfway, mostly in the Rishus Harabim, but the pull of gravity pulled it towards the inside of the house. So the person on the inside of the house should not get anything. I would think that way. Kamash Malon, we look at when you found it. If you found it exactly spread between the outside and the inside, then you would split it, and we don't make assumptions of how it got there. Now the Gemara says, if you rented your house to Airbnb, even no matter whatever you find in the house, you don't have to give it to the last renter. You have to give it, you can keep it. Now that's the Gemara's question. Why don't you give it to the last renter? It obviously came from him. Ba'amai. Why? Lezel bosa babsra. Let us give it to the last person that rented it from you. Mi loitnam. And the Mishnah, I don't know, it would seem obvious, this question to me, but we prove it from other places. That same idea. You always go after the last person that was there. The Mishnah says, if you find money in front of somebody who deals with animals, all right, he's an animal dealer. He sells sheep. Okay, so and this is in Jerusalem. I guess you know what? This is not in Jerusalem, but anywhere in Israel. So an animal dealer, most of the money that they deal with animals have to do with Meiser Behema money. A person, 10% of your Meiser Sheni money, 10% of your assets actually was used to buy animals that you're going to bring as a korban shlama. So let's say you found it in front of, I guess in Jerusalem, that would make most sense. The person would carry the money of Meiser Sheni and come to the person selling animals because he wants to bring a korban. So any money that's found by that person, by the animal dealer in that store, Lo'olam Meiser, you have to treat it as Meiser Sheni money, holy money. Bahar Abayis, if you find money on top of the mountain of where the Beis Hamikdash is, Chulin, then you say it's Chulin, because even though most of the money in the city of Jerusalem are Meiser Sheni, when Oile Regalim come, they don't, most of the time, they're not bringing their Meiser Sheni money to Har Abayis. They actually buy the animal before they get to Har Abayis. And even though during Yontiv, people have a lot of Meiser Sheni money in their pocket, but most of the time, most people don't have. So we'll say that assuming that it fell from somebody who came before Yontiv. So you don't have to treat it as Meiser Sheni money. So if you find money on Har Abayis, you can keep it. Ubirushalayim, but if you find money in Jerusalem, B'sharya Meiser Shana, no matter where in Jerusalem, not in front of an animal dealer, in front of a bus stop. B'sharya Meiser Shana, if you find it throughout the year, Chulin, because most of the money in the city are Chulin. B'shas Regel, but if you find it during Yontiv, Hakol Meiser, then you most of the people carrying money in Jerusalem are carrying Meiser Sheni money. But Omar Rav Shmai Bar Zeira said, my timer, why is that so? Why do you say that maybe the money fell from before Yom Tiv and it's Chulin money? And says the Gemara, every day people would clean the streets of Jerusalem. So if the streets of Jerusalem are clean, and it's Yom Tiv, it probably fell from one of the holiday visitors, and therefore it's Meiser Sheni money. The idea is you always go after the last person. Once something is cleaned out, we assume that it belongs to the last person. Alma. So we see from here. By the way, this is on Har Abayis. They don't have to clean every day. It's only in Jerusalem they had to clean every day. So that's why in Har Abayis, therefore, you could assume it came from somebody who was there from before Yom Tov. But on the Jerusalem, they clean the streets every day. But Alma, what you do see from this Mishnah is Amrinin, you say, Kamoi, Azli. The first guys are gone. V'hani Achrinin you. This came from the people who came last, the people who came up to visit the holiday visitors for Jerusalem. That's where this money came from. Therefore, the money that you find in Jerusalem is Meiser Sheni money. So the same thing, if you have a house and you're renting it out, Airbnb, why do you say that you're allowed to keep it? Because you rent it out to so many different people. But let us assume that the first people who came there, when they leave, they try to check to see if they're taking everything that belongs to them, and therefore they cleaned it out before you re-rented it to the next guy. So therefore, why don't we assume that if you're going to find something, it probably belonged to the last guy that rented it from you. that the people, the first people left, and these are new. This belongs to the last guy here. The last guy who rented it from you. That's who is responsible for who lost the item that you found in the house that you rent out. Answers the Gemara. The reason why you're allowed to keep it, it means that you made you rented out your home to three Jews, three Bachrim, let's say, and you don't know which Bachar it is. You don't know who lost it. So since you don't know who lost it, therefore you're allowed to keep it. So the Gemara jumps on that. Would you say that the halacha is like Rab Shimon ben Elazar, that if you lose something where there's majority is Jewish people, you're allowed to keep it? Maybe when Rab Elazar says that when a person loses something and most of the people are Jews, you're not miyayish on it, and you're not allowed to keep it. You shouldn't. The Chacham say you're not allowed to keep it because the guy that finds it is probably going to bring it up and by Yom Tov and make the announcements. But Rav Shimon ben Elazar says no. Even if you lose it in a high populated area with Jews, you're allowed to keep it. So is that the proof that the halacha is like Rav Shimon ben Elazar? No, you're right. The reason why you're allowed to keep it, you rented it out probably to three goyim or even to one guy, I would think, and therefore you could assume that your house, the one that left it there, was a goy, and therefore if you find it there after they finish renting it, you're allowed to keep it. Rav Nachman Omar Rabavu Afilu Teimu L'Shloisha Yisrael. He says that you're allowed to, even if you rented it to three Jewish people, you're allowed to keep it. So why is that? It's very different than Rav Shimon ben Elazar, because my tama, the guy, one of those three bachrim that lost it, let's say, in your home, he certainly was miyayish because he knows who else was in the house, two other people, and he's asking them, where's my item? And so he says to himself, there was no other people in the house except the two other people in the house. Amri, he says, Kamayu, he says to him, I told him 100 times, please return it to me. And the other two guys didn't return it to me. They didn't return it to him because they didn't find it. But he assumes they found it. And they're trying to steal it from him. And therefore he's miyayish. Got it? And now they're going to return it? He says to himself, if their intention was to return it, they would have returned it to me. Why didn't they return it to me? But they want to steal it. So therefore he is miyayish. He gives up hope. So because he thinks the other two guys are in cahoots, they found it and they are not returning it. So the person that lost it gives up hope. And so if the owner of the house finds it, he's allowed to keep it because he can assume that the person that lost it gave up hope. Says the Gemara of Ozno Rav Nachman Latamei. Rav Nachman is aligned with his opinion. Rav Nachman said, Ra'ah Sela, a man watches a Sela. Now a Sela is let's say a big coin that fell. You're watching this, Shnafel Mishnayim, two people are walking, and all of a sudden you see a Sela fall from two people. We go to Chavav and Beis. So you saw it fall from two people, and you picked it up, chayiv lahachzir, you have to return it or, hold on to it until Eliyahu Hanavi comes. You can't keep it. My tama. Why? What's the reason? Isn't you say if you find money, you're allowed to keep it? But if you see it fall from two people, you can assume that the person that lost it did not give up hope. The guy that it fell from didn't give up hope. He says to himself, I was walking with only one other person next to me. Naktinale, I'm going to grab him. Va'aminale, I'm going to tell him, I'll do the shakalte. When he finds out that he lost his coin, he's going to accuse his walking partner that you took it. And therefore, since he's so certain that the other guy took it, not realizing that he dropped it, but he's certain that the other guy took it, he's going to wait till he swears a shvuas hesed. So he doesn't give up hope right away when he finds that it's not there. He blames the other guy. So the guy that finds it, right, even though he saw from a distance that it fell out from two people, he can assume that he has to make the assumption that the person that lost it was not miyayish, and he picked it up before Yish, and therefore the halach is like Abaya, that Yish loy medas, is not yish, you're not allowed to keep it. Bishloisha, with 3 people, if you see it fall from 3 people, so you don't have to return it. My tama, what's the reason? If 3 people have lost that big coin, then you're allowed to keep it because the person that lost it certainly gave up hope because he doesn't know which one of the 2 people, when he finds out he dropped the coin or that he lost it, he thinks the other 2 people stole it, but he doesn't know which one stole it. So since he can't be certain, maybe it's one or the other, he can't force them into a shavua, and therefore he gives up hope right away, faster. My tama, the one that dropped it, he certainly yayish because he thinks he didn't drop it. He says the other guys took it. There were 2 people with me. So if I'm going to ask this one, he's going to say I didn't take it. If I'm going to grab the other guy, he's going to say I didn't take it. So therefore, he's accusing the other 2 that were walking with him. He's not certain which one of them. So he gives up hope, and he gives up hope. So the guy that saw all this from a distance and saw it fell from 3 people, he's allowed to keep it. So Amar Rava just qualified that and said, "Hi, that we said if you see it fall from 3 people, you don't have to return it. Loy Amr at the last by shava pruta that there is no shava pruta. Let's say that the coin that you found is a very small coin. That if you divided it up into 3 pieces, each one of those 3 people will not get a shava pruta. Aval isbe shava pruta l'chol chad v'chad chayv lahachzer. If it had a shava pruta for each one of them, so then you have to return it because perhaps the coin that you found belonged to all 3 of them, and therefore, that one that's that thinks he lost it, he thinks that his other partners found it, and they're just holding it back from him to because they want him to sweat a little bit, So therefore, but really it belonged to all 3 of them. So nobody was miyayish. But if there is less than a shava pruta, right? If there's less than a shava pruta, so it doesn't matter because even if they're partners, you're not returning anything to anything because none of them have an equal. And none of them have a pruta in it. It's a small coin. And if you want to say it belongs to one of them, well, we said before that if it falls from 3 people, they certainly will mayayish. If it falls from one of the 3 people, he's going to certainly be miyayish because he figured I can't get it back. My tama emshtim like miyash. Iki de amri. Others say amarava afagav the lesbay el sheva shtei prutas chayv lakas. Even if it's worth 2 prutas, you have to return it. Now, if it's worth 2 prutas, so why would you have to return it? Because my tama maybe all 3 of them were partners. One says I don't care for it, so he forgave his share to the other. So really, it belongs to 2 people, right? So one of them lost it, and it belongs to 2 people. The other one that sees from afar, he has to assume that nobody gave up hope over here. They all assume that each one is playing with them. We're playing with each other, so they didn't give up hope. So you, the finder, who sees this whole happen from a distance, even if it's 3 people, you still won't be able to keep it. Okay, let's go to the new Gemara and just a new little piece of Gemara, and then we'll stop. The Amar Rava, another 2 minutes. The Amar Rava, Rava said like this: New Gemara, Ra'a selah shnafla. You see a seller that fell, right? So it fell. Now you don't know if the guy didn't know that it fell from his pocket. Okay. So not lifnei yish, if you take it before yish, right? Almanas legoizla, because you want to steal it, right? Your guy didn't know that a Jew dropped $1, and you pick it up before yish, and your intention is to steal it. You're not intention to return it to him. Then at that point that you pick it up, you get 3 averos. Oive bekulam. You get 3 averos. Mishum lo sigzul, thou shalt not steal. Mishum Hashiv and Mishum Hashiv Tishivim, you have an Avera that you're obligated to return a lost object because it's before Yush. And Mishum like Tuchalis Aleim, the Torah tells us don't ignore something on the floor and pretend not to return it to its rightful owner. So it's a lav and an essay and another lav. So you get 3 Averas, 2 lavs and 1 essay, just by picking up a seller from the floor and with the intention of stealing it at that moment. You get 3 averes. The afagav, and here what's interesting, the chazal years. Let's say you did tshuva, and then the guy was miyayish. You found out the guy was miyayish, and then you said, you know what, I'll return it to him anyway. So you think you rectified. Wrong. You didn't rectify anything. Matano diyavle. You're just gifting it back to its original owner, because after years, I don't think there's no mitzvah to return. But the Aveira that you did is already too late. You have to do tshuva on those three Aveiras, like Sigzel, Hashiv Teshivim, Elay Tuchel Tisale. But not lifnei years, but if you take it before years, Almanachs Lahachzira, on the intention was to return it. Years, so you took it, you found it before years, and you want to return it. Years, then after you heard the guy was miyayish, the guy said, then you want to steal it. So oiva mishum hashiv teshivim, you have the avera of hashiv teshivim, because when you picked it up, you didn't intend to steal it, and after years, if you want to steal it, that's not stealing. The only avera that you did, and you didn't ignore it because you picked it up with the intention to return it. But now, after years, if you still want to keep it, you still have the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, because when you picked it up, it was before years. So the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda still is their existence. Even though the guy was miyayish, you still have the obligation to return it. So therefore, if you decide to keep it, even after years, you're even the avera of Hashev Teshivim. But let's say you waited until the bailam was miyayish. You kept it in a corner, you blocked it, you're not going to pick it up unless you know for sure that the original gave up hope. And then you picked it up. You're not over. The only avera that you did was you should have picked it up right away to return it. You can't delay picking an aveda up wait till after he does years. You have to pick it up right away. If you see it, you have to pick it up right away. If you ignore it because you're waiting till years happen so you can pick it up and keep it, that's the avera of leisucha leisalem. You're not allowed to ignore. One more piece. Rava said, let's say you see your friend lost money into like a sandbox. And you pick it up and take it. You don't have to return it to the owner. I don't mean a sandbox, but you saw him lose money at a beach. And you find it, you're allowed to keep it. My timer, the person that lost it into the sand, he's certainly miyayish. He certainly gave up hope. Even if you see him bringing like a sifter trying to find his money, and he's working hard to find his money, that doesn't mean he didn't give up hope. He says to himself, just like things fell from me, maybe somebody else lost money. So if I don't find my money, I'll find somebody else's money. And I'll find something. But the item that he did lose, he certainly gave up hope on. And therefore, if you find it before he does, you're allowed to keep it, even though you see him actively looking for the item. Okay, we'll stop over here.